Well, good evening, Commissioners. This is a regular meeting of the Urbana Community Development Commission, and we've had a bit of a break, but we're back on schedule. Okay, the meeting is now in order, and we'll start off with roll call.
Fred Cobb,
Here?
Janice Bankston,
Here.
Brian Cunningham, Chris Diana,
Here.
Ann Hines Silvis,
Here.
Lauren Carplus,
Here.
Jerry Moreland, Lisa Beth Searing. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is approval of the minutes, and these minutes are from October 27th, 2015. Let's take a moment and review those, after which I'll entertain a motion for approval or corrections.
I have a question about them.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't here, so I wasn't able to know what was going on. But something happened last week that involves a certain part of this homeless family in the area. And my husband and I were introduced to a homeless family of 4 children and a mother and father and a grandfather. And they were evicted yesterday.
Hmm.
And they're in various places.
Is that all?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
They are in various places and no place to go. And that's hard to hear when we talk about what we do for homeless families, both in Champaign and in Urbana. And they're an unusual family. They are burdened by student loans. And the children are in gifted programs in Champaign. And it's a real tragedy that they have no place to go and they don't even really know how to proceed to find another home. And so I hope somebody here in Urbana will help them, because they're spread out now all over. Families need to be together. So I was glad to see that emergency solutions grants and homeless families. Looks like there are a lot of possibilities, and yet they haven't managed to tap into any of them. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. We may come back and address that in a while.
Thank you.
After our minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I did read the minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's take another moment and look them over. Okay, everyone had enough time? If so, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes as written. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any comments? I'd just like to comment and say that there's a lot of clarification in the minutes that I didn't actually hear during the meeting, and I appreciate that. I think it's very good because some of the things that you write in there make it clearer than when you're actually participating in it. So thank you very much. Mhm. Okay, with that, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, no? Ayes have it, and the minutes are approved as written. Okay, next on our agenda, we have petitions and communications, but we have no audience this evening, so we'll go to staff report.
Okay, you were sent the staff briefing, and I'll just highlight I'll just go over some of the highlights. For our HUD activity, we did receive notice regarding our allocations for fiscal year 16-17 for CDBG and home, and we had a cut in both grants. It was about a $10,000 cut in CDBG and about $15,000 in home. So we are going to, now that we have hard numbers, we're going to be looking at the budget and getting our annual action plan working on. We submitted our CAPER, which is our Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, review response. When we submitted the report the end of September, then HUD reviewed it, and then they sent us a letter in December asking us to respond to their review with additional information, which we did, and so now we're awaiting their approval. And then the third thing is that I state here that we were awaiting approval from HUD for our home monitoring response, and we actually received the letter like the end of last week after packets went out. So there are still some issues that we need to resolve, but a few of the things that we submitted, they approved. So I believe the remaining few issues we'll be able to take care of in the next month when it's due. So, and then you can see mostly, working on the annual action plan, looking at commitments and our timeliness issues, doing reconciliation with last year's and this year's grants with our CD associate who's working with us part-time, working out really well. And we're going to begin monitoring, desk monitoring of all of our subrecipients and grantees, and I'm working on getting letters out. That is something that we're required to do with all of our grants, is all of our subrecipients monitor and make sure that they are following regulations and doing what they need to do. And then you can see Randy listed his rehab projects. A congratulation is in order for Matt. He has been promoted from our community development specialist to community development coordinator. So that, yes. So, and then there are regular meetings that we've attended. So that's our report.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is old business. There's nothing under there, but looking at our minutes, there were a few comments that were made by Chris, and also you made some comments, didn't you, about the matrix, things like that. Do you have any follow-up on any of those things?
I did send some things out. I'll check and make sure that I didn't miss anything, but I thought that I had sent out,
you sent some things.
had responded to your request. And I also actually did find the original ordinance that was set up back in 1974 when the commission was set up. No new ordinance since then, so I did scan and email that out too. So, but I will follow up and make sure that I didn't miss anything, and if I did, I will make sure to get it out this week. I apologize for that.
Okay. Next, we have new business. Under new business, first, we have the schedule for fiscal year 2016-17 annual action plan process.
Basically, I just wanted to let you know that that we've revised the schedule, that we'll be putting a notice out in next month about having a public hearing next at the next commission meeting, and we'll be having a rough draft of the annual action plan to review, and also recommending priorities for the CDBG public service funds that are a portion of the consolidated social service funding. So that will come up at the next meeting, and then the public comment period will end in April, and then we will be taking it to council the end of April. We usually try to take the annual action plan to council early April, but a lot's going on, and part of it we wanted to wait until we got our allocation from HUD. So we have lengthened or made it farther out that we're doing the process, and then it will be submitted to HUD. And this is the first time that we're doing it through the IDIS system, so we'll see how that goes too. But I just wanted to let you know that the original schedule I had sent out a few months ago, we have revised some of the dates so that you can know what's coming up.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And next, we have a resolution evidencing the intention of the City of Urbana, Champaign County, Illinois, to transfer volume cap in connection with private activity bond issues, single-family mortgage revenue bonds, and related matters. In parentheses, private bond cap allocation, EIEDA, Series 2016, in parentheses. Okay, we're
Okay,
going
I
to
will
the
do
bond
that.
caps.
Yes, I'll start with this. So the issue before you is regarding the use of our 2016 private activity bond cap. As a home rule unit in Illinois, we are allowed per capita, per population, they determine how much per capita of this private act. It's not really money per se, but it is bonds that can be issued, and helps projects where there may not be a gap in funding. So the bond cap can assist with that. So so we are allowed $100 per capita, and as you can see, the total that is available is $4,204,400, and that's based on the population of 42,044. So, and the different uses for the bond cap can be for multifamily housing, manufacturing, hospitals, those kinds of things. You know, even in the past, we have done mortgage credit certificates that help through an entity up near Chicago that helped home ownership. And so with the mortgage credit certificates, you're able to take a credit toward your mortgage off your taxes. So there are a lot of different uses, and we have done this for the last several years. We have chosen the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority, which was created in July of 2005, and through this Illinois Public Act, and it helps, they are allowed to issue taxable and tax-exempt bonds, and they have a multi-county jurisdiction, and we've ceded it to them for possible multifamily housing projects that we have in the city. We have also done homeowner assistance programs, but they have either been continued or didn't need our bond cap. By ceding it to the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority, we felt it would help with Highland Green or Aspen Court Urbana Townhomes redevelopment. So, and by using the EIEDA, it removes any liability from us and has another party that takes care of all that bond issuing instead of us having to do that. So, and we have to do this by May 1st, and we decided to get a jump on it early and get it done, because then we have to submit ordinances and resolution, all that, to the governor. And there isn't any fiscal impact to the city budget, and there's no financial risk from our responsibility. So with that, if there's any questions, I will try to answer as best I can any questions that you have.
Okay, I did have a question about how the money, I guess this is just a question to explain, excuse my ignorance about how the bond would work through EIEDA.
Okay.
So they issue a tax-exempt bond on behalf of the city at the rate of $100 per capita or whatever it is.
What we are doing is, per the state, as a home rule, we have
You have that
4 million,
Right.
4.2 million,
Right, I
and so we are
understand.
ceding all of that to EIEDA. And we have done that for several years.
Right.
So,
And so in the past, it's been used on the Aspen Court and Urbana Townhomes and Kerr Avenue development projects?
no, actually, we
So that's
ceded
the
it
proposal.
for possible use with either one of those.
Okay.
Because as of right now, Highland Green is working to get all of their financing in order. They got their low-income housing tax credits, so they're working on getting all their financing in place. And Urbana Townhomes is not as far along,
Right.
but
So in what ways does this help the developer of those projects?
I see it as filling a gap. I should have had Andrew Hamilton from the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority come. He would have been good to explain this. He said that the bond cap works well with the 4% low-income housing tax credits that the Illinois Housing Development Authority gives, and those are non-competitive. Low-income housing tax credits, 9% are competitive. So it helps to fill a gap in the funding.
In their
That's how I
funding.
see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this would count under the possible uses of the bond cap. It would be number 1, multifamily affordable housing projects
Mm-hmm.
is what this is. Okay. And so I guess my question is, what are other potential uses of this money that have been considered, and what?
Usually
What
what
might
we've done
be?
in the past, again, is home buyer assistance.
Right.
I think Stern Brothers was the entity up in Aurora area. And so they issued the bonds, and then from that, somehow money then was made available, and banks, lenders were able to access that for to assist people in getting their mortgages. So it was kind of instead of down payment assistance, which is up front, the mortgage certificate credits were kind of on the back end on through your taxes.
Sure.
So Kelly, would you say that it's not as if there's a pool of money, it's just the capacity to borrow against this, and we're allowed a certain capped number, and we're saying, we're giving you our allowance, so it's not like we're giving money or that.
Right.
It's just borrowing.
Yes, that's a good point.
Does that help?
I guess I do just wonder, what other areas we might be thinking of for,
Well,
just looking at what they have available, nonprofit development projects, for example, things
Mhm.
like that, that might be relevant to the community as well.
So you were asking if there could be a better use?
Yeah,
Of
I'm
these
asking
funds?
if there's potential.
well, we've not really ever considered that. I mean, we've just pretty much gone with the homeowners, the home assistance, or thinking of these large multifamily projects that might need assistance. I'm not sure how for the nonprofit, how that would work. I know industrial, probably, and that would tie in like with economic development, the TIFs would cover those kinds of things. And if you look at the examples, they show like hospitals, the YMCA, so it would be like large nonprofit. And in thinking of offhand of nonprofits in the community, I don't think of any of them that are really building new large. It'd be more like what they look for more is like rehabilitation money to upgrade their public facilities that they have.
He said we had two
Did-
options.
A question, well, I guess a comment and a question. I know that in years past, a lot of these funds, many years ago, used to end up running through a lot of industrial development. Back when there used to be people bringing industry to the state of Illinois, it would funnel into that. That part hasn't happened for a while. But my question is, do we have any feedback number on, as we do this allocation to them, and as it notes in there, that this has been done in lieu of some of the other projects that kind of dried up, so you put the funds in there in the hope or the possibility that funds can be borrowed back from there for development. Do we have any sort of a number as to how much in total we have allocated to them out of our funds versus how much we've actually recaptured for projects in Urbana?
I believe with this, I think it comes to roughly, 12 million for the last 4 years. So I think it's 11, 12 million. So I have that piece, but as far as the other piece, I don't have that, but I can certainly.
I would be interested, because obviously this goes into a large pool, and with, well, the counties there, Champaign, Cole, Douglas, Edgar, Ford, Iroquois, Moultrie, Piatt, Shelby, and Vermilion. Out of all those counties, probably Champaign County is in the most stable financial condition. So one could kind of make an assumption we may be more of a contributor than a borrower, and I would kind of be interested in what that ratio was.
Sure, I can check on that. I do know that in talking with the executive director, if we needed more, that we could borrow, because he said there are others, even in other parts of the state, that don't use all of their their bond cap, and so there is,
Yeah, I know that there weren't, I mean, years past, when some of the industrial developments were done, some of those funds came from all over the state of Illinois to go in there. So I know that, I don't mean to say there's any limitation on what we could regain from there, but I would just kind of be curious what the in and out ratio was.
sure, I can get that information.
Thanks.
Okay, are there other questions? Okay, what the commission needs to do is to make a motion to forward this to city council with a recommendation that we proceed with this or not. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yes, make a
Yeah,
recommendation.
I
to
was looking
forward.
at the options there. I don't think that there are any other really viable options for us at this point, so do I hear a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second to recommend to the city council, go ahead with this to forward the resolution with a recommendation that the private activity bond cap be ceded to the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority to be utilized for possible neighborhood initiatives in the community. Any comments? If not, go ahead.
Just one further note, I don't know if it needs to be complete or not, but this appendix C, which is population estimates, it's half a population estimate. It starts at M per page.
Right,
I don't
well,
know if you have to have that on there or not.
no, what I did is because it was the whole state, and so what I did is just showed the page of the header banner on it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Any further comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have an amendment to a subrecipient agreement between the Urbana Home Consortium and the Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County, fiscal year 2000 through 2014 through 2015.
And I'll
Would you like
have Matt speak on this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that amendment is to an agreement that was brought before the CDC on May 27th of 2015, and the original agreement conveys $150,000 to Habitat for Humanity to construct or to establish 4 single-family affordable homeownership opportunities in Urbana. As time has gone on, some progress has been made, especially with 903 Eads, the property there. Habitat has finished construction on that lot and has sold the completed house to an income-eligible home buyer. Habitat also owns 1403 Eads and is progressing on that lot as well. However, Habitat has had some difficulties in acquiring the properties at Hill and Goodwin. And with that in mind, they have requested to amend this agreement and take those properties out. But another property has also come to their attention as one that they've been looking at to acquire, and that's 1203 Beslin. And their proposition right now is presented in the second table on page 2 of the packet. And they're proposing the same funding amount, $37,500, be allocated to each of those 3 properties to bring the total of the agreement up to $112,500. And it would essentially reflect the table on the second page. And as before, each of the projects would be completed as part of Habitat's Affordable Homeownership Program, using the same policies that they use on each of the prior, or had planned to use for the original agreement. In addition to the home funds that are being requested for these properties, Habitat again has been using the Attorney General grant rather extensively and would continue to use that for the 1203 Beslin property. The pro forma for that project is located in the application in the packet. And again, the projects will be overseen by Sheila Dodd, Executive Director, and Gary Pearson, the Construction Manager for Habitat. And they, like I said, they would use a lot of the same, the family selection guidelines, the house sale requirements, the program manual, a lot of that would remain the same. So with that in mind, we would like to give the options to forward this resolution to the City Council with recommendation of approval, or make suggested changes to it, or do not approve the recommendation. In terms of fiscal impacts, since this entirely deals with grant funding, in particular the home program, there would be no change in the city general fund. And the $37,500 in home funding that would be released by this amendment would be allocated to other home eligible projects. And also, it is important to point out that the establishment of 3 new single-family units in the city would help to build the tax base. In terms of programmatic impacts, since this amendment sort of straddles 2 con plan eras, so to speak, it would fulfill goals in both the immediate past, 2010 to 2014 con plan, and the one that we are currently in, the 2015 to 2019 con plan. So staff recommends that the Community Development Commission forward the resolution to the City Council with recommendation of approval. And I will also add that we are still analyzing the 1203 Beslin project just from a regulatory standpoint, looking at, in light of the HUD monitoring that we've received and new guidance from HUD, we're still making sure that that would be eligible. But given our trust that we have with Habitat and that we've partnered with them many times in the past, we're very confident that, and the similarity that this project has with many of the previous ones, we're confident that we will be able to put this forward. But I did want to let you all know that we are still analyzing this, and just wanted to put that out there. The agreement also is pending legal review. It will be sent to the legal division, so that may see some changes between now and this would eventually go to City Council. So are there any questions?
2 questions. One is with regard to amounts. Since this was originally a $150,000 plan, which is now 112.5, what's the impact, or what's sort of the story with the other 37.5? Where is that sitting? What does it do? How is that impacted?
Essentially, this amendment would turn that into unprogrammed funds. It would
Okay.
still only be able to be used for home eligible uses. Some of the examples that I put in the memo, it would be like the Kerr Avenue, the Highland Green development. You know, as that project moves along, a portion of the funds could be committed to the developer for that. Could also be used for the whole house rehabilitation program. We have projects that it could be put to, so it certainly will not sit.
Right.
But yeah, it just becomes unprogrammed at this
It
point.
kind of goes into my second question, which is more related to time. So it goes into unprogrammed funds, but for when? Because originally, and it's kind of the gist of my second question, I think this was originally 2013 that this was done for 14, 15. It's now 16. And we have in here that there's as always that 3-year time limit on it. But when does that 3 years start and when does it end? If it starts back in 2013, it's almost over. If it starts now, we actually have some activity that's on here that predated it because one of these properties is already sold. So since having one that's been sold, one that's in process, and one that hasn't been purchased yet, and straddling two different 3-year timeframes, my only concern is, are we legit with where we are on those times, or are we kind of messing up the timeframe?
Are you referring to with home deadlines or
Well,
with Habitat's deadlines?
The way these programs are always written, each of the projects will be completed within 3 years. 3 years from when? From 2013, when we first wrote it, or from today, when we're rewriting it, or what? Because one of them is already completed, one is in process, and one hasn't started, and we're straddling two timelines. I'm just trying to figure out, are we actually designating the correct timeline, or should we change this 3-year limit in there, or what?
I think it certainly in terms of construction, for ones that have not started yet, it would probably be further than 3 years from the 903 EADS, from when the 3 years started then.
Right.
Just in terms of logistics. But the actual federal home, the next deadline that would come up with that would be the commitment deadline. And this contract committed 14-15 funds, and the commitment deadline for that is this coming July 31st.
Right.
So we would essentially need to commit all of our 14-15 funds by that date. So as long as all of the funds from that fiscal year are committed in HUD's eyes by that date, then from a home standpoint, we're okay.
So-
And we are working on
Yeah.
making sure that
Right, so
commitments are made,
then,
yes.
if I take it, they consider commitment of funds to be a completed project? I'm just concerned
contracts-
about the language that's
Sure.
in there. It says the projects will be completed within 3 years. And-
There's a
yeah.
separate deadline that would reflect on that. And I believe the portion in the memo that talks about that, I believe that's more of a Habitat programmatic
Okay.
deadline that they sort of, or more of a timeline that they have that they project.
Gotcha.
But in terms of home funds, there is a completion deadline as well. I believe it's a 4-year or a 5-year deadline. But the more immediate concern at this point is the 2-year commitment deadline for
Okay.
14-15 funds.
Okay,
And
so
we are
we're
get-
okay with that, even though it reads funny for the project that's going on. It
Yes,
really doesn't
yes,
have
we,
anything to it.
mhm,
Okay.
yeah, we make sure to check reports and make sure that we know what the commitment deadline is, and that we will get these all committed before that. So we make sure not to lose any money.
Okay.
Yeah, so this does decommit some funds, but we do have projects that we can commit it to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, we need to decide on what our motion will be. Will we forward this to City Council with a recommendation for approval? Or does anyone want to make any changes? Or does anyone not want to recommend this? So I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we forward the resolution to the city council with the recommendation for approval.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to forward the resolution to the Urbana City Council with a recommendation for approval. Any further comments? Questions? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, the motion carries. Okay. Okay, next, excuse me. We have an amendment to next we have a resolution certifying a community housing development organization for the Urbana Home Consortium, which is Habitat, February 2016. And you think you combine that with the next one?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, would you like to
So-
go ahead with that?
Yeah, I'll present on both of those. And that's sort of a HUD requirement too, is that community housing development organizations need to be certified before
sure.
each of their projects that they undertake. And in this case, Habitat has submitted an application to us to use CHODO funds for 3 projects, 2 in Champaign, 1 in Urbana. And as we've done in the past, we are putting the certification and the project together and sort of putting them through at the same time. And the Chodo reserve amount for fiscal year 15-16 funds is $97,962.60. So this would be committing the full Chodo reserve amount to Habitat. As it's mentioned in the memo, staff has not received a completed Chodo certification application from Habitat, and at this time, we still do not have a completed Chodo certification application from Habitat. So with that noted, I just wanted to throw that out there immediately and let you know that what we could do at this point is, I think there's still value in presenting it, but we would likely need to forward this to the next meeting when we are able to receive a completed Chodo certification application. Another possibility would be to have the Community Development Commission make some kind of a recommendation regarding this, contingent on Habitat bringing forward a completed Chodo application. So I'll definitely leave that up to you as to how to proceed in that regard.
Did want to note that the certification, the one that we had previously had, HUD stated that it did not follow the new 2013 home rule, so we had to revise that, and there is a lot more information that is requested, and they tried to complete that before we could send out packets, and there's just so much information that they had to get. So they are working on it, and we expect that very soon, but decided that we would go ahead and come with the resolution and present it, and then see what it is that you would prefer.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, I think that contingency option you presented would be good. And if they do not get a certification that's approved, then we can go from there. But what does everyone else think?
Is there any negative impact by not approving that at this meeting and deferring it to the next one?
The only advantage that I could think of is of doing that. I do know offhand that Sheila Dodd has, she's going to be out of town over the next couple of weeks. So I know her several times over the next couple of weeks. So it's possible she may need more time to complete it. And with that in mind, forwarding it to the next meeting and keeping it at CDC could be an advantage. But
When you say completing it, you mean completing the certification?
the certification form, yes.
I guess I would only mention, just as a thought for those of us who've been around here for a few years, that it was only a few years back that we had some issues regarding Habitat and HUD, and activities were suspended with us and them for a year or so, and some of that was from procedures and who they brought into offices, and some T's that weren't crossed and I's that weren't dotted. So we might want to be cautious that we're, probably, I guess what I'm saying, it wouldn't hurt to be overcautious if it doesn't do any harm to the resolution, and have our ducks in a row as opposed to doing them contingent.
As far as commitments, I believe we have until, I think, July.
It's July 31st would be the commitment deadline.
So waiting one more month would not hurt that.
Yeah.
If that's so what you wish, so.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the commission? I'll entertain a motion, if one is presented.
I would move that we defer this to next meeting.
Next meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further comment, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, no. Ayes have it, and this issue will be put off until next meeting.
So what we'll do is we'll put it under old business?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put that under old business, and maybe Sheila will be available to come to answer any other questions you might have. We'll check with her schedule.
Okay. That exhausts our agenda for this evening. Does anyone have anything else you'd like to bring up before the commission? Oh, your issue, the family.
Yeah, I just would like to know what process we can expect them to follow to get any activity.
Give them some
on
help.
their part.
Well,
Well,
a
I know
homeless
this-
family? Now,
What?
they're Urbana, they live in Urbana?
No, they live in Champaign, but
Oh.
that
Well,
should not make a
suggestion.
difference.
Did they go to First Call for Help? Did they try that?
211?
Actually,
No.
there's not a first call for help
All they
anymore.
have
There
tried
isn't?
They were at Family Service and they lost their funding.
Family
And
Service.
so the replacement is 211. Calling 211, explaining, I have not used that in particular, so I'm not sure how that is. I know, thinking of the emergency family shelter, that the United Way and is working with the Housing Authority. That is, should be opening at some point. I'm not clear what the timeline is. Regional Planning Commission would be doing the case management and would be helping families, and that is in Champaign, but it has, I think there's been some kind of a delay, so I'm not sure when it will be open. That is what, trying to help families so that they stay together. That is what that's for. Unfortunately, like I said, it has not opened yet.
The Phoenix Drop-In Center on Green Street, sort of near Neal and Champaign. That's
What?
the CU at Home Phoenix Drop-In Center on Green Street. That's a great organization. They have staff available there that can provide some level of case management, as far as I'm aware. So that we can get you more information about that you could pass along. But yeah, that's a great facility for families in situations like that.
They've not been in town very long, I don't believe, and it's hard to know where to go. He had contacted Salvation Army, and
So CU at Home will also know where else they can go to, so that's one that I would really recommend.
that's
because
out of Green.
Yeah, they're a great resource center. They're a daytime drop-in center, so they're not an overnight sleeping facility at this time. Right?
Not yet,
Not yet.
yeah.
But they will know about the resources there. It's called, can I write it down?
Please.
Okay. And do you know, does
Okay.
anyone have their, I can look that up. So it is 34 East Green Street. So that would be a place I would start first.
Oh, you have a number. Thank you very much. I'll pass it
Okay.
on.
Okay, does anyone else have anything? If not, thank you for your participation. Meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.